Hi, Heartroom friends. Today we're reading the BFG by Roald Dahl, and we're on a chapter called Feeding Time on page 199 if you want to follow along. While the giants were being captured, a tremendous bustle and hustle was going on back home in England. Every earth digger and mechanical contrivance in the country had been mobilized to dig the colossal hole in which the 9 giants were to be permanently imprisoned. 10,000 men and 10,000 machines worked ceaselessly through the night under powerful arc lights, and massive task was completed only just in time. The hole itself was about twice the size of a football field and 500 feet deep. The walls were perpendicular. Ooh, perpendicular, that's a great word. This is perpendicular. That they have a right angle, corners. And engineers had calculated that there was no way a giant could escape once he was put in. Even if all 9 giants were to stand on each other's shoulders, the topmost giant would still be some 50 feet from the top of the hole. The 9 giant-carrying helicopters hovered over the massive pit. The giants, one by one, were lowered to the floor, but they were still trussed up. And now came the tricky business of releasing them from their bonds. Nobody wanted to go down and do this, because the moment a giant was freed, he would be sure to turn on the wretched person who had freed him and gobble him up. As usual, the BFG had the answer. "I has told you before," he said. "Giants is never eating giants, so I is going down and I shall untie them myself before you can say Jack Robinson." With thousands of fascinated spectators, including the Queen, peering down into the pit, the BFG was lowered on a rope. One by one, he released the giants. They stood up, stretched their stiffened limbs, and started leaping about in a fury. "Why is they putting us down here in this grub-sludging hole?" they shouted at the BFG. "Because you is guzzling human beings," the BFG answered. "I is always warning you not to do it, and you is never taking the titchiest bit of notice." "In that case," the flesh lump eater bellowed, "I think we is guzzling you instead." The BFG grabbed the dangling rope and was hoisted out of the pit just in time. The great bulging sack he had brought back with him from giant country lay at the top of the pit. "What's in there?" the Queen asked him. The BFG put an arm into the sack and pulled out a giant black and white striped object the size of a man. "Snozcumbers," he cried. Guess what he's going to do with those? "This is the repulsant Snozcumber, Magister, and that is all we is going to give these disgusting giants from now on." "May I taste it?" the Queen asked. "Don't, Magister, don't," cried the BFG. "It is tasting of trogged filth and pig squiddle." With that, he tossed the Snozcumber down to the giants below. "There's your supper," he shouted. "Have a munch on that." He fished out more Snozcumbers from the sack and threw them. You see the giants being lowered into the hole? And there's the BFG, the giant Snozcumber. He threw them down. The giants below howled and cursed. The BFG laughed. "It serves them right, left and center," he said. "What will we feed them on when the Snozcumbers are all used up?" the Queen asked him. "They is never being used up, Magister," the BFG answered, smiling. "I is also bringing in this sack a whole bungle of Snozcumber plants, which I is giving with your permission to the royal gardener to put in the soil. Then we is having an everlasting supply of this repulsant food to feed to these bloodthirsty giants." "What a clever fellow you are," the Queen said. "You are not very well educated, but you are really nobody's fool. I can see that." That's the end of our chapter. I'll see you tomorrow.